Good afternoon, alienated parents, alienated grandparents, alienated children, family, friends, professionals out there worldwide. Welcome to Let's Talk on Parent Alienation. And today we have next topic will be on sex trafficking our children and child abuse. We have Lynda Harlos from Canada. I'm from Ontario, Canada, and I welcome Lynda to help us learn more about what's happening to children out there today. Um, Lynda is a coach and an educator, sex trafficking educator, and is here to speak with us today. And she has a story that is every parent's nightmare. I'm going to let Lynda tell you the story, and it's very heartbreaking, but it comes out with great a great outcome for Lynda because she has this gorgeous smile and then she's got her daughter and she wrote a book, Walk a Mile. So let's welcome Lynda Harlow to Let's Talk on Parent Alienation and Child Trafficking. Thank you, Lynda, for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate the invite, Mary.
Thank you. So, Lynda, can you give us more of your background and let everybody know what you do and how you got into this on raising awareness and all that for child trafficking and child abuse?
Absolutely. So I am a mom of 4 children. I've been married for a long time to the same man. Was a stay-at-home mom because I felt it was really important, and we were able to, middle class family. We weren't rich, but we were ready and willing to do without the new cars and the vacations just so I could stay home with the kids. So we were and are your regular suburbanite family, community-based, faith-based. My daughter one day ended up going to a party, and at that party that she was at, we thought she was at a sleepover, but she was at this party and she ended up getting gang raped. At that gang rape, she had a friend who had actually taken her. And when she went to the police about it later, this friend would not corroborate her story because her boyfriend had threatened her that if she told the truth, that she would get beaten up. So the police did not believe her story. A lot of her friends did not believe her story, thinking that because she got pregnant due to the rape, that she was just making up this story of the rape. So socially, she got alienated a lot. Ostracized is the word I typically use. And along comes a guy in her life who happened to see that she was being ostracized and met her at the smoking area of the school. He stood off on the corner, and then he introduced himself on social media, explaining who he was, how he'd met her. They had some mutual friends through the school, so she thought he was a fairly safe person. We taught our kids back when we were growing up, stranger danger. We don't do that anymore because it's not the stranger who's hurting our kids anymore. It's people they know.
Mm-hmm.
And over a course of a year and a half, he did a lot of verbal abuse, I believe some physical abuse. I do talk about the one time in my book where I actually saw him slap my grandson. And then it sort of came to a head, and a lot of things happened in the background and or was said to my daughter to make her feel like it was time to move out with him. And so once he convinced her to move out with him, under the guise that he was taking care of her and my grandson, even though he was not the father. Isn't he a nice guy? Look at how much of a hero he is. Look at how much he cares about her. Within a short period of time of getting her to move out, he started trafficking her. It took her 8 years to figure out that that's actually what had happened to her, even though he only trafficked her for about 3.5 months. And she called me one night and said, "Mom, come pick me up. No questions asked." We did. We brought her home. We didn't ask her any questions about it. We kind of always did what we could to try to leave the doors of communication open with her so she would come and talk to us about it, but she didn't. And it ended up being a long process for her to figure out that that's actually what had happened to her. And once she figured out what happened to her, she ended up then coming and telling us about it.
How old was she?
How old was she?
Yeah.
She was 17 when she got raped. She was 18 when she had my grandson, and she was 18. Just yeah,
Just a
she was
child.
18. Yeah,
Just a child.
a child for sure. So then she decided to go and start working for organizations that were in our area,
Hmm.
to start educating kids on what happened to her and why. So she worked for some victim services here in our area and went into schools and started talking about it. And that's when I decided, okay, so she's hitting the ground running. So am I. So with her permission, her and I ended up both doing speaking engagements together. I started my own workshops. I got educated on this, and then I became a sex trafficking and abuse prevention educator, and on teaching anybody who has children between the ages of 2 and 25 in their lives what to look for, what domestic sex trafficking looks like, because it does not look like the movie Taken or Sound of Freedom, so that they can be aware of all of this, and as well as teaching them why their kids might be targets, and then also teaching about consent, because those are the three things we missed. So that's what I do. That's why I do it, and that's how it all came to be.
Do you, when you educate children, do you get them from broken homes, divorces, families like that?
So I don't educate children. I educate the adults in the child's life.
Okay.
And yes, quite often. So we typically know that the most vulnerable people, or the people who tend to be trafficked or in abusive relationships, are ones who have come from an abusive relationship, or are vulnerable because they're homeless, or because they have a drug addiction of some sort, or the mental illness, if they're immigrants. So we know those are the highest vulnerabilities that can cause them to become somebody who's vulnerable to abuse or traffickers. However, in my daughter's case, she was raped, gang raped by her peers. Police didn't believe her, felt very ostracized. And that was her biggest vulnerability. And then fearing about becoming a single mom. And how was she going to handle that? How was she possibly going to handle that? Her big dream all her life was to have a family like ours, a large family, a loving husband, and suddenly she's going to be a single parent. So the people who come to my workshops can be professionals who are dealing with children, and they're concerned about that child for some reason. They're just trying to learn a little bit more about it. Or it can be parents who are just feeling very alienated from their kids. The teenagers, preteens, teens, and young adults have a really solid way of distancing themselves from us, especially if they're doing something in their life they think we're not going to approve of.
Yeah.
They don't want us to know, and they'll do everything they can to hide, to push us away, to make the issue about something else other than what it really is about. Probably already because they know our opinions on what it is that they're doing, and they know that we're not going to approve. And a trafficker and abuser latches onto those things so
Yes.
quick. They figure out what those kids need and want so quickly that the audience that I have are just people who are trying to figure out what's going on with their kids.
Hmm.
And that's usually the biggest group of it. It's or people who work for organizations, trying to learn a little bit more so that they can go out and help with whatever field they're working on. So I really have quite a variety of people who come to my workshops.
That's great. Because I was only 18 when I got raped, and there was nobody back then. I even went to the school. School didn't help me. I had to quit school, go to another school, be kicked out of that school because the rapist didn't want me away from him. So he told the school that I didn't live in that area. So they let me finish one semester, had to go back to the other school where I was raped, where my rapist was. And I ended up quitting again, never got to graduate grade 12. 2 years down the road, I was engaged to someone else, but he got murdered. And the rapist literally threatened me and threw me over a devil's punch bowl, saying if I told anybody my story, this is 3 years later, that he would kill me or anybody that came near me. So this is what these abusers do. They threaten us, they intimidate us, they put the fear in us. So he would cry suicide and all this kind of stuff. So when my fiance got murdered, he came to me like 10 minutes later. We're engaged a month later. We're married a month later after that because it happened so fast so he wouldn't lose me again. And I was 18 years old. I was not in a mind being raped. I got pregnant. I had to have a legal abortion because the baby was lodged in my tubes. I had no idea what was going on. I mean, I came from a Catholic family, and my mom always never let me be near a boy. I was raised with 7 brothers. Those were the only boys that were near me. And
Mm.
once she let me go, this boy took advantage of my mother's kindness and everything else. And then I get raped. What do I do? I was supposed to be with him for a week. I come home the next day. My mom says, "What happened?" And I didn't want to tell her. I was embarrassed. I was ashamed. I thought it was my fault because I went, even though she told me not to. So our kids, when they're alienated from a parent during a divorce, they have nowhere to turn to because their person that they're with, the alienating parent who's stopping them from getting the advice that they've always had help with from the other parent, is gone. So they go out on the streets, they become a target to these abusers. They could just be driving down the street. They see a young girl smoking. Right away, they're going to jump on them. Or they see a young girl walking by herself with a short skirt on. They're going to jump on them. My girls went through this. For 18 years, I've been alienated from my kids, and I've been watching them on social media crying suicide, crying help, but they don't know how to cry help because they're getting confused with reality and what really happened to them, whether it was a sexual attack or it was just something that they want to um, be part of, to be in that clique. Like their friends talk, they're doing all these TikTok things about abuse and they're making fun of abuse, but yet when it happens to them, no one can believe them. So here's your daughter who really happened to her, and it really happened to me. And my, the police didn't care. What did I do? I signed up to be a policewoman. It's just so I could go, have him arrested. But he ended up marrying me, took me away with the military, so nobody knew my life. Nobody knew um, who I was. I had no family to back me up, no family to be there when I was beaten up and lost a child, another child. And it's just so hard because when we're alienated from family, we're lost. We're lost. And anything that happens to us, we blame ourselves for it. And I'm sure your daughter did too. Like you said, she didn't want to talk about it. And when they don't want to talk about it, something's wrong.
You do. You do. And honestly, there's, one of the biggest things that's wrong in our country, in my opinion, is the family has fallen apart.
Mm.
People, and I'm not saying everybody should stay together with somebody, especially if they're abusive. I don't think they should stay together with somebody who's abusive. However, I do think we give up on our relationships way too quickly, and our kids pay the price. They pay the price if you stay together with somebody who's
Yes.
abusive, but they definitely pay the price if you're breaking up from somebody or leaving somebody and there's no abuse going on.
And there's no
And I
abuse.
don't mean like they called you a name. They got mad and said something they shouldn't have said once or twice. I'm talking about abuse where they're, constantly degrading you, constantly putting you down, constantly saying that you're worthless, useless, assuming you can't do anything right, or physically abusing you or sexually abusing you. And I think we've just gotten into a state in our world now where everything looks greener on the other side of the fence. And so people just hop out of one relationship into another. We swipe left, we swipe right, we hook up, and we don't stop to realize what that is doing to our kids.
That's right.
And I come from a split family, and I can tell you, I was 13 at the time, and I can tell you it took me years to recover. I was fortunate enough to find a man who was not abusive, who did not do the same thing my parents did, and was a loving and supportive human being. My parents weren't abusive by any means, but obviously they split up for a reason, and it was a very valid reason. So we need to understand that families are what is going to hold our children together.
That's right.
And if the families aren't there, and I don't mean it has to be a mom and a dad, I mean families, right? It can be siblings, it can be aunts, it can be uncles, it could be adopted families, it could be people that you choose to be family with as opposed to bloodline. But if your kids don't have that surrounding them growing up, they're not going to feel like they've got anybody they can go to when they need that safe place. And if they can't find that safe place, guess who's going to step into their life and be that safe place? It's going to be the abuser. It's going to be the trafficker. Anybody who can exploit them is going to, because they're going to see that that child is in need of something, and they're going to fill it. They're going to provide them that safe place to come and talk with no judgment, no criticism. Oh, I can help you. I can do this for you. And it should be the parents, the aunts, the uncles, the really close family friends that are there for our kids. It takes a tribe to raise our kids, and we've got to stop assuming the families are not important. They are so important.
Yes, they are. And that's why I believe that grandparents should have a right when the marriage breaks up and both parents can't figure out where they're going, that the grandparents should help raise the children. And it's so sad. Like, my mom lives a mile away, 2 miles actually, from the ex's mom, and yet my kids got to go to the ex's mom's house because he couldn't look after the kids once they were taken from me at 15, 17, and 18. They went to his mom's house, and my mom never got to see them for 18 years now. And she's 91 years old. And, we write to the lawyer asking for the children's, not children, they're adults, asking for their contact info. The lawyer writes back, tell Mary and her mother to go find other ways to be contact with the kids. I don't have any contact number. Meanwhile, he puts them on Zoom trial. Well, if he didn't have contact with my children, how did he get them onto Zoom trial? So, these lawyers, these judges, they're all hiding our kids, and these kids fall into the trafficking hands, the abusers' hands, and they have nowhere to go. They don't know who to trust because the loving person, the grandparents, the aunts, the uncles are all taken from them. Their own cousins, their friends are taken. So they are living a split life and never get to see whoever again. So, they are getting confused on even who they are because some parents change the kids' names so that the other parent can't find them.
But if we put ourselves into the shoes of the people who have to make those decisions for our kids, right? Because, a couple gets married, they split up for whatever reason, good or bad. And you're putting yourself in the shoes of a police officer or a judge. Some of them are definitely corrupt, and I absolutely know that without a shadow of a doubt. There isn't any profession out there that doesn't have bad people in the profession, but there's also some good ones. And I can tell you, as much as I would have loved to have been a judge growing up, it's just something that I've always had an inkling and said I would love, that's the job I would have loved to have done.
Me too. I actually applied for it.
The older I get, the more I begin to realize that it's a difficult job because you've got to sit between both parties, and you don't know which one's telling the truth and which one's not. You have no idea. Even in the Bible, King Solomon had a struggle with two women saying the child was theirs.
Yeah.
And so it's a horrible situation for a judge to have to pick and decide and figure out who is the safest, who is the best. We need to get back to the point where we do what we can just to keep lines of communication open with our kids in however way we can do that. And trying to teach healthy relationships. So hopefully the next generation coming up doesn't swipe left and right and think that, the next hookup is more important than keeping families together.
That's right.
And I don't know how we go about that. I don't know how we get to the point where we can turn the axle on this and make it turn around, where we learn to put our priorities, to our kids first. And I think most parents think they are putting their kids first. But they're in so much trauma themselves, and they're dealing with so much themselves. And they're between work life and home life and whatever issues are going on between them and their relationships, or them and their parents, or them and whoever. It's just too much anymore for everybody to try to deal with and be everything we need to be for our kids. But you come from a situation that had everything batting against you. And my daughter come from a situation where she had a loving, caring family that was here for her, and the same things happened to both.
Yes.
So
Oh,
that's the bottom line to what this particular podcast is all about, is that it doesn't matter
who you are.
who or where our kids come from. Every single human being on the planet has vulnerabilities. Every single one of us have low self-esteem at some point in time in our lives. And anybody who wants to exploit that is going to find them, and they're going to do that. So we
That's
have
right.
to educate ourselves on what it is the trafficker or an abuser is looking for. Make sure that we're providing that for our kids to the best of our ability. We cannot be everything to everybody, but to the best of our ability. And the one way to do that is to educate yourself on what it is a trafficker is looking for, what domestic sex trafficking actually looks like. Because it was my daughter's live-in boyfriend who trafficked her. I know people, it's their pastor that's trafficking them. I know other people, it's their Boy Scout leader who's trafficking them. So it
Yeah.
can be anybody who's doing it to them.
Yeah.
So we need to educate ourselves on what that looks like. We need to educate ourselves on what our kids' vulnerabilities and insecurities are. And then we need to educate ourselves on consent and what it really looks like, how to teach our kids even before they're, you can teach toddlers about consent. It doesn't have to be sexual. But if we can
Nope.
start equipping ourselves so that then we can equip our kids, then they're going to have a better chance than we did. That's
That's
the
right.
bottom.
Yeah. That's so true, because my ex-husband, every time I didn't abide by what he wanted me to do, he would tell me, he would take me out into the woods and leave me there. Or he would take me out to the woods where his friends that were hiding, and he would let them rape me and do whatever they wanted with me. These are the kinds of things that I had to deal with right after I got married. And traffickers will do the same thing to their next victim. And it's not just them, because a lot of these predators out there are married with their own children.
Yes.
They have families.
Yes.
And it's just so sickening that we have to find out that this man had children of his own, and yet he went out and killed the whole whack of children, raped them, did whatever they wanted to do. And that's why these judges need to understand that when a parent badmouths the other parent, it's because they're hiding something. They don't want to be exposed. So these children are brainwashed to lie themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So they're really holding back their fear when someone comes up and says to them, I want to touch you, or they get raped, or they want this, or they want that. The kids don't know how to deal with it, because they're just hearing it from the abusers constantly.
Yes.
I had to deal with being, if you get fat, I'm going to lock you in the closet and feed you bread and water. And this was heard through the PMQ we lived in, with 6 houses attached. So everybody in the row knew I was eating or not, because I would be shoved into the closet, banging on it to get out.
Mm.
And, it was so hard to live with an abuser. Many of us tried to get away, but when the kids came, they were using the kids as to exploit us by saying, if you leave, I'll kill the kids, I'll
Yes.
kill you. So these kids are growing up, and they're so confused on who to trust anymore.
That's the bottom line.
Yeah.
They don't have any place to go.
They have no place to
They
go.
have no safe place. They
No.
have nobody that's going to be their champion and stand in their corner with a sword and shield and protect them.
Well,
And
you're a champion to your daughter. Like, really, my hands so good for you to be so strong to help her and then
well,
to educate everybody else.
I'm actually, the title of the book is called Walk a Mile, and it is titled that specifically because my daughter is the one that was the example of showing me how to allow other people to walk a mile with me to educate them. So she's the champion. She's the tenacious woman. I've learned so much from her. Um, the one thing I did right was be there for her. When she come and said, Mom, pick me up, no questions asked. That's the one thing I did right. And that's what got her out of it. And but she lived with that for 8 years, that big secret. And that's the heartbreaking part because she did not feel she could come and tell me about it. But you learn from your mistakes, and I did. So,
And you saved her. Well, I mean, how's your other kids in the
uh,
same situation? Were they good supporters too? And
well,
so sorry.
it took all of us the 8 years to find out about it. So she didn't tell any of them anything for that 8 years. We knew that something wasn't right. We could tell that, we just knew. But when my kids all found out, they all surrounded her. When we first found out about the rape, and she had decided she was going to keep the baby, we all ended up going on a vacation just after that. We had rented a cottage for a week, and it was probably one of the best vacations we ever had. I watched my kids just surround her and love her and be there with her. And we didn't talk about it unless she brought it up. We just kind of left it alone. And we said, we'll deal with this when we get home after vacation. And we kind of did the same thing about the trafficking. We all went to her personally. And we're there for her personally. Then my kids also have said, we know what you do, Mom. We're glad that you're doing it. We understand the need for it, but we don't want to talk about it when we're together as a family. It's in the past. It's over and done with. Let's move on with our lives. And so when we're together as a family, we're together as a family, and we think about the future, and we play games, and we have fun. And when and if we talk about the past, it's about the good times that we've had. And my daughter, the one that was trafficked, she's part of that champion part of this, where she goes, yeah, let's not talk about it. She did her due diligence for 1.5 years and went and worked with victim services in our area until she got totally drained. Telling your story 2 or 3 times every day is a lot.
Yeah.
But she like, if you watch my daughter or hear any of what she does now, you can tell that she stands in the corner for those people that nobody else is standing in the corner for. If they're ready and willing to give her just an inch, she gives them a mile so that they've got somebody in their corner. But she always expects them to give an inch. Like, don't be an idiot. Don't be you do this and I'll help you. Come on, let's. And so she works with a lot of different people, a lot of them with mental disorders and stuff. So I'm very proud of her. Like, she's just tenacious, and she blows me out of the water. This girl is what she does. And
She's a survivor.
and she doesn't even like to use that word anymore.
No. Yeah.
It's not even actually even part of my life anymore. I'm
Right.
so past that. And I'm blessed. I'm so thankful that she is past that. And she doesn't go back to that very much. And when and if for some reason something triggers her, you'll see her, on her Instagram, you'll see that she's gone down to the river again and she's writing her poems again. It's because something triggered her, and that's her way of pulling herself back out. And so I'm very proud of her. Like, the woman has just taught me so much about self-help and surviving. And regardless of what happens to you, yes, something happened to you. Now you have that label. You choose whether or not you're going to use that label in a good way or a bad way. And chose good. She chose better instead of bitter. And honest to God, I'm extremely proud of her.
That's good. And I was the same. I became, knowing that I was being abused, I became a dispatch for the military police, security guard, helping others to deal with what I was going through. Knowing that
Yep.
I helped someone made me feel better, even
Yep.
though I didn't feel better. I just knew that I was doing better. Instead of fighting with the ex, I put
Help the
my
next
my
person up.
energy out to help others.
Yes.
So, we do things for a reason, and we do it for good reason.
Yeah.
As a I hate to say the word victim, but we do become better,
Yes.
where the abusers become worse.
Yes.
Even though they were a victim, they just chose the wrong path.
That's
Like,
right.
like an example is today, my brother got murdered 12 years ago, and three killers. There was actually four, but the fourth one, ended up in a mental institution. He set the whole thing up pretending to be a caretaker. So he got three crackheads, alcoholics, whatever they were, involved and killed my brother. But when we went to the trial, I got drained for 5 years, 5 months, and 5 days to have a judge literally let them walk free. And because she made an error, she didn't teach the educate the juror enough.
Mm-hmm.
So these killers got off. So they're running around here in Hamilton, Ontario, miles from my mom. But getting back to not bringing it up in the family, we don't go to my mom and talk about the kill, my brother being killed. We remember the days, the special days, and my mom would always have to bring it up. Um, Today is your brother's, and we would say, yes, mom. We can light a candle for him, and my mom's got the candles already every time, and so it brings us a little bit closer to my brother. But we can't talk about it because it's very heartbreaking to know that someone killed your brother
Yeah.
or sister, daughter, son, father, mother. I mean, it's really horrifying because it destroys the family unit. And I watched my family, my brothers, fall apart, where they were helping me when I got divorced, and we were helping each other when they, through their divorces, losing their children, to being separated again by another disaster and another disaster. Everything's compounded on people that are being abused. They get more abused by the system, by the courts, by police, by, whoever they deal with.
Yeah.
And like, you're educating them to understand that they have to be strong, and we have to fight for ourselves,
Yes.
basically, because we
Yes.
can't trust anybody out there anymore.
Well, we have to fight for our kids, right? We have to
Yeah.
fight for our society to be better. And the only way we can do that is little baby steps. And if our little baby steps is what it's going to take, if we all do our little baby steps, we will change the
Mm.
way people think about things, the way people understand things. We can educate. It's up to the people. It's up to the audience what they decide to do with the information they get. And the toughest part of my job is getting people to even pay attention, to realize that this is a problem, and that there's an easy solution, and the solution is to educate yourself. I can tell you, I wish that there was internet and podcasts and all that kind of stuff when I was raising my kids,
Me too.
because then I would not have to put my head on the pillow at night, knowing the only excuse I have that my daughter got trafficked was because I was naive. And that's
Yes.
a horrible excuse. It's not a good way to go to sleep every night. And so my job, my only job, my calling, it's not a job because I don't get paid for this. My calling is to make sure that nobody else has to put their head on the pillow at night, with naivety being the only reason somebody got abused or trafficked.
Yeah.
So we need to do our little steps, Mary. We need to do whatever we do, however we do it, in whatever way we do it, to take those little steps, because there's an expression that says evil flourishes when good men do nothing.
Hmm.
And typically the people who are going to do something are the ones who have had something happen to them, because they did choose better instead of bitter, because they did turn their pain into purpose. All those are choices, because so many people have been abused. So many people have come from split families. So many people have had something horrible happen in their lives. None of us escape. None of us escape it, but it's our choice what we do with that. And that's what makes somebody, in my opinion, a good person or a bad person, is when they choose not to let that cycle continue, and they choose to do something about it by taking their little baby steps to make the world a better place.
Right. And it's not just only children that are getting trafficked, because it's adult women too. I mean, you find a lot of them dead in rivers, and they don't
Yes.
even, just to dump a human body somewhere is despicable. But you know, they're found in sea containers by the dozens, being shipped off to different countries. But when you have an alienated child that grows up into an adult but continues to be um, estranged from you, is there anything we can do to help these kids to come back to us? Do you
The only
know? Like,
Well, the only thing you can do, if the damage is already done and they're already alienated, the only thing you can do is to keep the lines of communication open in whatever way that is. So you were talking about, you were following your kids on social media, just not being pushy or aggressive or in their face with your support. But when you see them post a picture, putting a heart beside it, or just things so that they know that you're still there, that
mhm,
if they need you, okay, so mom is posting hearts, mom is, posting that little carry emoji or whatever, mom liked my post, or when and if you can get an opportunity and it's appropriate, because it can't be all the time. We can't be hounding our kids. We can't be stalking them,
right,
because that's what they're going to call it, right? But when and if they show a picture of a puppy in a Santa outfit, you can go, oh my goodness, that's so cute, right? Just little things that let them know that you're there. If you have their cell phone number, I know lots of times, like in your case, you couldn't contact some of them. But if you do, just sending them a text message, even once a week or once a month, just checking in. How you doing? If you need me, I'm here. Or, my kids still get that from me, and they still know I love and support them. There is no alienation in our family, but I still do that for them, because
right.
I never want them to think that I'm not here.
That's
And
right.
that's the only gift we can give them.
Yeah,
Whether or not they choose to take that help is on them. Unfortunately, we can't force them to do it. And the minute we force them to do it, we are putting them back in the same situation where they're now being victimized again. Even though our intentions are good, we are pushing ourselves on them. We're pushing our agenda on them. We're pushing our ideals on them. And that's exactly what they're pushing against. They want to be individuals. They want to be themselves. They already know what you think about whatever topic it is that they, whether it be about sex, or whether or not it be about what movies you watch, or whether it be about drugs, or they know what you think or don't think about all of those things. So if they've come to you to talk about any of that, you have to put your judgments and your
yeah,
criticisms aside of what's going on, and just be there and listen, and then say, how can I help you? And they're going to say, well, mom, I know you don't agree with this. Yeah, I don't agree with you, but that doesn't mean I can't be here to help you. We can agree to disagree. We most
hmm,
definitely can agree to disagree. And I'm still going to be here for you 100%. How can I help?
yeah,
And you just constantly, and it's a full-time job, but you just try to be there in
yeah,
any possible way you can, so they know you're in their corner.
yeah. Yeah, I remember, like, I wrote to my three each week. I would write them, and one did not reply for 11 years. And
Yep.
when she finally did reply, it was not a very good reply, because she had been so brainwashed by then, craving attention from the abuser.
Yeah.
So she had to lash out and go tell me to go kill myself, like I was intended to, on
Right.
social media. So, screenshots, you got to be careful what you say, because screenshots are easy. I sent it off to the judge, here, don't call me abusive when I'm getting messages like this. Where are they getting it from? They're getting it from the abuser. So when our children are being trafficked, we got these abusers that are just scum of the earth. They'll bring in 10, 15, 20 men to rape the same girl, where they become diseased and
Yep.
sick, and they don't care, and they let them sit there and die. Well, this is what's happening to our alienated children too. They're craving the attention,
And more.
and they will do anything, anything. So later on in life, they become the abuser, the trafficker. It's just a vicious cycle. So
It
this
is.
is what we need to know, because I wouldn't want my daughter to be with someone's son that was abusing and becoming a, you know, a trafficker, a rapist. Why would I want? So we need to educate people to let them know that this is what's happening to all the children out there that are being extorted for some reason.
Yes.
And, you know, and it, like you said, it could be anybody. My kids came from a very healthy, um, loving one-sided family, and the other side was stone cold. And they chose the stone cold because it was easier to be avoided than to be smothered,
Mm.
I guess. But it wasn't smothered; it was being loved, and they always saw that the father was bad mouthing the good, like church. Oh, only losers go to church. We're going to church every Sunday. Just before we get into the door, he made the kids cry that I don't want to go to church.
Mm.
Well, it's kind of late. We're here in the parking lot. So the whole time they're sitting in church, wishing that they weren't there because the father's falling asleep in the pews. So they're emulating the abusive part of something that should be good.
Quite often, at least from my experience, and I'm not an expert on this by any means, but from what I've been able to observe, quite often the children from an abusive parent, the ones who become abusive as well, are doing that for approval. They're looking for approval. And so they become exactly like the abuser, thinking that's going to give them the approval that they're looking for. And honestly, our kids are always looking for our approval, right? We all learned about the 5 love languages, right? And every single one of us are always looking for ways like to be loved,
Right.
to be appreciated, to be noticed. And abusers know that, and they give it, and then they pull it away, and then they give it, and then they pull it away, and then they give it, and then they pull it away. They dangle, and it's not a consistent thing. It's just
Random.
and it's just enough. It's just enough attention, just enough love, and I say that in quotations because it's not real love in my opinion, to get them hooked, line, and sinker, and then they pull away, or they use them or manipulate that them in that way to get them to then potentially be abusers themselves. And
Yeah.
that's the part that's really sad. And I don't know how to fix that. Like I said, I'm not an expert. My hat's off to anybody who deals with mental health issues or anything like that, because all this develops into that as well, and it creates depression. It's a spiral. It's a spiral going downhill. And like I said, Mary, it comes back to me. I don't try to live in that spiral. I try to live in my baby steps, and what can I do to help the next person I come across? Can I make it so that hopefully they can be protected a little bit more than they were before, the day before. Like, I just want to make sure that they're aware that they, right. And like I said, we all need love. We all need attention. We all crave to be desired. And
We're born that way, right? Babies, we crave the mommies or the daddies.
We
our
crave
milk,
hugs.
yeah.
And
So
when we
why
don't
would we be any different as adults or teenagers? We all need love,
we do.
and without love,
Yep. I can tell you, my husband and gives me a big, huge hug and kiss every single morning.
nice.
And if I didn't get that, I would not be the person I am today. I can guarantee that. There's just something about real, honest love, and is he a perfect man? No, he's a great man. But is he a perfect man? No. But
There's
it's
no
that love.
perfection. Yeah,
No, it's that love. It's just knowing that
respect.
regardless of what I say or do, he's going to accept me for who I am. And when and if I do something that he doesn't like, we talk about it. I mean, but it doesn't mean that it gives him any. He doesn't use it as leverage against me. Anything I do wrong or say wrong or think wrong, he doesn't use it as leverage. Anytime a person uses what you say or do as leverage, they're not good people. They're
not good.
Manipulators.
Yeah, and that's where the education comes in. And I'm glad you said that, because these podcasts that I do is here to help people know that, all these guests that come on, they know they're going through it. And unless you go through it, you really don't know what to say. And it's important for therapists to understand that too, because not everybody lies. A lot of us we're intimidated not to speak out.
Yes.
A lot of us were threaten with knives, guns to our heads. I mean, it's really violent out there
Yeah.
when we expose someone or try to expose or try to get away or try to just like, be free of the narcissists or psychopaths or whoever, because once you have children, you're stuck with them for the rest of your life. So we need to learn how to deal with these people. And 46 years of me dealing with the same person abusing my children, and I'm watching him do this over and over. And then he posts pictures of the kids and them all standing there together, like, "Hey, look, we won. We don't have a mom anymore." I mean, that's heartbreaking.
Yes.
And that's just a mental illness through the alienator to do stuff like that.
Yes.
Because, the kids lost half their identity and now they're like the king of the world because they trashed their other parent, mom or dad. So they become who they become later on in life, and there's nobody there to save them anymore. And it's sad.
It is
It's
sad.
sad. Yeah,
I think what we need to, as individuals, we need to be gravitating towards people who show respect to other people.
absolutely.
So, I had a parent who badmouthed another parent, and then I had a parent who would never badmouth the other parent. It took me a long time to realize it was the one that wasn't badmouthing the other parent, that was the one that I should be listening to.
Yeah.
Because if you're not ready and willing to put another person down, and you own what you did wrong, you're a good person. You're
Hmm.
just a good person. And there's lots, he could have said. There's lots that could have been, but he never did. He
Mm.
never he never did.
Well, I got bad mouth so bad 18 years ago that I should be like 20 people. And then 18 years later in a trial, he tells the judge I was the perfect wife. So, they flip the script at their convenience.
Yes.
And this is how abusers get away with
Yes.
trafficking. I didn't traffic her or him. They came to me, like, no, 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 no. We need to we need to get the story straight from, the kids and the abusers. You need to learn how to read between the lines, and this is basically education,
Yes.
because abusers will always gaslight and project onto to their victims or to
And they
whoever they're doing it.
they always look like the hero.
Yes,
And in all my
that's
workshops
the
in all my
hero.
workshops, that word I use a lot because that's exactly what they look like to the victim, like the hero. They've
Yes,
come in and they've rescued them from this, or they've given them something that they really needed in their life, or they
yeah,
become the perfect boyfriend, or they become, whatever it is that this person needs, they become the hero. And once you've become somebody's hero, you have to do an awful lot to destroy that. And because they know what they're doing, they get to the verge where they're about ready to, the victim's about ready to figure out what's going on, and then they become the hero again, and they
right.
charge in on that white horse again. And so it's a mind game, and it's manipulative, and they're doing it on purpose. They know exactly what they're doing. And honestly, it
Yeah,
exhausts me to even think about the amount of work they must have to go
yeah.
through to keep playing this game.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, it is what it is. And honestly, baby steps, Mary. You and I are
Baby
just going
steps.
to do our
Yeah,
baby steps and keep moving
yeah.
forward and try to educate as many people as we can.
That's right. Well, Linda, we've gone into almost 50 minutes. Sorry I took up more of your
No
time
problem.
than expected,
No
but thank
problem.
you so much for coming on. Any last words you've got for parents out there to?
I said I love you to my kids all of the time. As a matter of fact, they got sick of it sometimes. But
Mhm.
what they did not hear me say, because they didn't realize how important it was I love you no matter what. Our kids need to know that no matter what they've done. So they sent a nude picture, or they ended up sleeping with somebody, and they shouldn't have, or they got drunk, or they got high, or they did what, doesn't matter what they've done. We will never, ever, should never, ever turn our backs on them, close our doors, tell them they're not welcome at home. So we need to stop saying, I love you. And we need to start saying, I love you no matter what,
No matter what.
no
They
matter
all matter, yes. Well, thank you again, Linda. Maybe we could get you back and get you to do a part two
what.
and talk more about your book. I mean, this is very interesting on how you have succumbed so much trauma with your daughter and your whole family, that it's a blessing that you are here today with us to share this story.
Thank you.
And
I hope the book actually does blesses people. That's the intent, is to make people see that, you know, no matter what you go through, um, just keep loving your kids and just keep being there for them. And, you know I'm one of the few people, one of the very few people who ended up having a happy ending, if you can say that, because I mean, she was still trafficked, but at least she's home, she's safe, she's doing well. My grandson's doing well. So I'm one of the few people who can say that. But I'm hoping the book will bless people, because it will help them see what we missed, and hopefully they don't miss it, and hopefully they don't have to put their head in the pillow with naivety being their only excuse. Hopefully.
yes, once again, viewers out there, Walk a Mile with Lynda Harlow
On
from
Amazon.
Canada.
On
Pardon?
Amazon. On Amazon.
On Amazon.
Yes.
So I'm going to put that into the comment box so anybody can get the book. It's very inspiring, and I'm going to make sure I get it too.
Excellent.
So again, thank you, Lynda. And alienated parents, grandparents, alienated children out there, don't give up. Please don't give up on each other. I'm not going to give up on my kids nor my future grandchildren. I mean, I want my grandchildren, if I'm not here, to know that I fought for their rights before anything gets happened to them as well.
Amen.
But just want to say thank you to everybody. And on Sunday, our next guest, Sunday, we have, oh, wow. No, I think this Sunday is Christmas Eve, so we're not going to have a guest, but we will have a new one in the new year on Let's Talk. So thanks for everyone that tunes in. And if you want to share your story, please message me or email me at Mary_Kovacs@hotmail.com, and I will get you on the show. No charge. We don't take any money from anybody. We just want you to educate us on what you've gone through and how you've survived and how your children are doing. So thank you, everybody. Merry Christmas to all of you out there. And please do the best that you can to support the next person who literally tells you that they need help. So, Lynda, thank you again. And God bless your family. And you have a safe Christmas in the new year.
Thank you. You too, Mary.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.